Hey guys, so today I'm gonna do, I don't know if this is gonna be like a two-part series or if I'm gonna be able to finish everything in this video. If it's too long, I'll make it into two parts. But I wanted to talk about finding your true type, and this is a requested video. So some of you have requested videos for me to make. So far, the requests have been how to find your true type, ENFPs. I'm not quite sure what I would say, but you know, maybe I would compare them against another type, and how to start a YouTube channel. So I definitely want to take requests, and so this is the first one, and this is something that I kind of been wanting to talk about anyway. So you know, let the games begin. I'm going to try to organize this and structure it. Just a heads up, I just had a couple of drinks with my friends, so bear with me. Yeah. Okay, and another thing I'd like to address, I can talk about it in length in another video, but I think that I can start off kind of talking about it here. And that is questions about my type and typing people that you know, and just kind of like what the general perception is of your type. So like from here, I've gotten everything from ENTJ to INFJ to INFP to some of this being a extroverted intuitive dumb to a lot of different things. And I think it's interesting how the types can be expressed. And I definitely want to talk about that. And we'll kind of get into that. So I guess we can start there, right? So I am an INTJ, right? And I've tested myself. And I'm going off of a bunch of things, not just preferences. I think preferences is a great place to start, right? So I'm going to start from the most obvious ways to type yourself to the ones that are not as obvious and require a certain level of research and understanding of Myers-Briggs and its kind of history and example. So the most obvious way to find out what your type is, of course, is to Google it and take a test. Now, there's an official test that you have to pay for, but you can always, you know, pretty much figure it out from other personality tests that offer the test. So that's the most obvious way. The second way, and this is where you're really going to get some accuracy and some understanding that goes past kind of like the surface sort of stuff. And that's in finding out about the cognitive functions and then seeing which ones you utilize the most. Now, you remember, all of us utilize all the cognitive functions, actually. But there are ones that we use overwhelmingly, right? And this is what we're talking about in your functional stack, like the first four functions, right? Not the shadow functions, which are, you know, the last four, which are the opposite of its respective place, right? So that's where you're really going to understand things. And that's when things are really going to come into kind of like where you're starting to really understand it. And it's not just, well, I don't know, sometimes I make decisions when I think, and sometimes I make decisions that when I feel, or, you know, because then you're going to understand how the cognitive functions are placed, right? And how they relate to the preferences. But a good place to start is the preferences, right? Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that MBTI is a stereotype. And I think this is really important to note and to say. So when you see someone doing something, you're like, hey, an INFP would never do that. Or an ISFP would never do that. Or ESFPs are always this way. Like they can, you know, never do that, right? You have to understand that Myers-Briggs, like everything else in typing and labeling, right? Anytime you type something or label it, you're limiting it. Right? And it's a stereotype. Now, that being said, stereotypes have a lot of truth to them. Like I was seeing this BuzzFeed test my friend sent me about, you know, if you're a New Yorker, if, right? And it was basically like 50 experiences, and you're supposed to check off, you know, how many of the 50 you experience, and that shows how much of a New Yorker you are versus how much of a, I guess, not a New Yorker you are. And what was funny is that a lot of it was spot on, right? But then like 15 were like, I've never experienced that. That's never happened to me. That's just a stereotype, right? That's the thing about stereotypes, is that they do fit. They do, a lot of times, right? They're generalizations. So they're talking about something that covers a lot of territory. And this is where you get into a lot of trouble, is when you try to cover too much territory, then you're leaving out people's unique, subjective experiences. And something that's important to note is that we are a collective, right? But we're also individuals. So we're having experiences where it's like, literally, this is something that only happens to Black females that live on the West Side, or this is what happens to gay males that live in Hackensack or something like that. Like something that's very specific, right? But even if you poll and the more specific you get, even with them, they're gonna have different unique experiences. And that only makes sense because you have, your genes are expressed differently, you had a different upbringing, you've had different experiences. Every experience you've ever had, everything you've ever heard has shaped you to become the person you are today. So we're all having both a unique and kind of like a stereotypical generalized sort of experience. And I think that's very important to note in trying to find your own type. So if everything doesn't fit within your type, that's fine. It shouldn't, you know, like that would make you some sort of robot. So that's the first thing I want to say about typing, is that remember, MBTI it's a stereotype. That's what it is. I'm going to get into specifics very soon, but I kind of want to cover all bases here. Something else to note, in addition to, you know, the individual versus just society and, you know, those experiences, it's important to note that two things, and this is something I've heard in another video, that good people are hard to type. And I totally agree. Because someone that takes other people's feelings in consideration, but also make, you know, good decisions for the group and for themselves, people that are on time, people that are respectful of other people's boundaries, people that try to make others feel good while they're in their presence, all that stuff, you know, just in being a person that wants to be well-rounded, it can come off like you don't have a type. You know what I mean? Like it can come off like you're just an ambivert. You're an ambivert and you're just XXXX, which I see on forums a lot. But what we've learned from the literature and what I've learned in my research is that that doesn't actually exist. And once again, that's kind of looking at preferences versus the cognitive functions, like the meat and potatoes of your type is in the cognitive functions. But I will say, you know, when I put my effort to it, I can probably come off the exact opposite of what I actually am. And I think that in people trying to type me, they're kind of looking at that expression. But you have to understand too, an introvert in a very comfortable space, like right now, I'm in my room. I am in my room talking to a camera, and I had a couple of drinks, and I'm at the height of my level of comfort. Like I can't get more comfortable than this. And as a result, you're seeing probably just kind of like the highest expression of my personality right now, right? But it's not always that way. And once again, that's why if you're gonna type someone, you really wanna look at the functions. Another thing to consider is gender. So I feel like, and this has actually been documented, right? That type, and things kind of, here's the thing too. A generalization is that all women are feelers and all men are thinkers. And things kind of lean within that sort of order, that, you know, general order. But the truth of the matter is that it's been proven that there's a lot more connectivity between both hemispheres of a woman's brain, all right? So like the intuitive, emotional side, and then the kind of logical, analytical side. So there's much more interaction between those two sides in a woman's brain. Then in a man's side, in a man's brain, it's like the connectivity, there's much more connectivity within the hemispheres as opposed to like communicating with each other, right? So this is why you can get an extreme example of thinkers, which, you know, sometimes put men at more risk to being on the autism spectrum. So with a woman, you can kind of see a little bit of everything. It's possible, and that's why it's overall difficult for women to designate their thinking versus feeling preference, right? We're encouraged differently. Society treats us differently, and that definitely takes a lot into account. Like, we're supposed to continually be the caregivers. So if there's a kid in the room, right? I'm not a mother, but if there's a kid in the room and the parent isn't there, or I'm the only, me and maybe one other person there, I'm gonna assume sort of parental, I'm gonna act as a surrogate parent. No matter what the situation is. If it's on the train, if it's anywhere, like I automatically, instinctually, I feel like I have to do that. And I think that comes a lot into women having this sort of caregiver role, and there's biological reason for that. So I think that's something that has to kind of be looked at too when you're trying to designate between the thinking and the feeling preference. The next thing I want to say, I think I'm going to go over later in the video about just kind of how our functions are expressed. And I think this also takes into account why a lot of people are confused about people's real type, especially on YouTube, where you literally are seeing a person, one, in their most comfortable state possible. Who is not more comfortable in their socks, in their room, talking to a camera, right? But also because the functions are both extroverted and introverted in their nature and in their expression, right? So in your functional stack, right, you've got 4 functions. 2 of them are extroverted and 2 of them are introverted. So what you extrovert, literally, is what people see. And that's how people judge you. So interestingly enough, people have said that I seem like an extroverted sensing dom. I'm going to use that word a lot today in these videos, is a say dom. Because I just like it. I just want to seem like a dom. So my inferior function is extroverted sensing. Right, so my inferior function is extroverted sensing, and then my auxiliary function, my second function, is extroverted thinking. So I literally extrovert thinking. So that's literally what people see from me. So it's very easy to be mistaken as a tay-dom. I'm just gonna use the abbreviation, just keep saying dom, because it's just fun. Come on, guys, you know that's fun. So in thinking about this, right, and I know there's a different range of people that watch my videos. I don't necessarily claim to be an expert. I'm literally just learning. I'm an enthusiast. Right? What the fuck, right? So when we talk about the functions, right? You've got the judging and the perceiving functions, okay? So you've got extroverted intuition, introverted intuition. These are perceiving functions. The other perceiving functions are introverted sensing, extroverted sensing. Boom. Those are the perceiving functions. All right. The judging functions are thinking and feeling. So extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling. Oh, this is fun, guys. This is extroverted feeling, introverted feeling. Yeah. So those are the functions. That's all of them. That's all 8. Right? That's what we're working with. And those are the judging functions. As a result of this, think about it, right? When I first heard that, right? When I first heard extroverted, let's use something that I don't, extroverted intuition, right? I'm just like, extroverted intuition. So, extroverted intuition. So I was like, literally, this was the first thought I had when I heard extroverted intuition. I kind of tried to take that in. I thought, extroverted intuition, like an introvert that's extroverted, right? Think of it more like this, okay? Think of it in that the direction where the function is going. So if you have an extroverted function, right? That means that it's directed outward. It's directed outward. It's directed towards people. In addition to, is more shallow in the sense that it's not intensive, right? It covers more ground, right? Including a lot more people. It's not individualized, it's not specialized. Now, when you introvert, a function, it's intensive. It goes deep, right? And it's subjective. So it's directed towards you and your experiences and the things that you care about. So that's the best way to kind of look at the functions, is that this is kind of about me and how I feel about things versus what's going on out there and what can be observed by other people, right? So if I extrovert thinking, that's what people are seeing from me. I'm doing things with thinking that's generalized, it's socially acceptable, it's something that can be observed by others, it's something that can be quantified, right? And that's the way I look at extroverted thinking. So kind of always look at that, the functions that are extroverted versus introverted in nature. And in kind of finding your own type, and in others, which is like the most fun, like that's what I do now, is type all my friends. This is the first thing I do. The first thing I do is give my estimate, like my guesstimation, and then the second thing I do is give them the test or read off the questions and then see how close I was. I was very close with my mother. My mother is an ENFJ, and I typed her as an ESFJ. Yeah. Yeah, so I was very close with that. So that's always really fun. Just think about what people do when they're hiding away, the things that they care most deeply about, and the way that people operate in the external world. Think about that. Also, another way in trying to figure out your type. So basically, I just want everyone to know, I'm just kind of going through different strategies. Like, it's obvious that you can do the reading on your own, and it's obvious that you can take the test on your own. I'm just trying to, help you clarify. Think about the type of person you are in the grip, right? One thing I like to Google randomly is INTJs in the grip, or INFPs in the grip. I don't know, it's just really funny. It's basically seeing how people are when they flip the fuck out, when they are stressed. How do people react? How do people deal with things? And I'm also going to go over ways that I think you can best utilize your inferior functions into your everyday life so that you don't have a midlife crisis one day and, buy like a Jaguar and, get holed up in a hotel somewhere with some prostitutes and some meth, right? We don't want you having a midlife crisis like that. I don't even know why I just did that. Actually, I do know why I did that, but you've heard your things before. So we want you to get to utilize these sort of things, your inferior, into your everyday life now, however old you are, right? Let's get you to use it right now, because that's really kind of like the crux of like where your ego is, and where you're kind of like always holding on to, right? Even though everyone around you is looking at you like, yeah, I don't see you that way. Like, I don't see that from you. You're like, yeah, shut up, because I'm whatever. Inside, I am a world traveler, right? Let's say if extrovert intuition was my inferior, I am a world traveler. Even though I've been in the same situation for 20 years, I'm a fucking world traveler, okay? Inside, right? Another thing to learn to understand about that. So if in the grip, you go off by yourself and start doing things, then you could say, okay, well, I know that my inferior function is going to be an introverted function, right? And then what type of person are you, right? So for me, my inferior is extroverted. So that's where I'm directing my attention. But once again, it kind of goes in a way that's unhealthy. Another thing to kind of look at in determining your type and others' types is if you're an extrovert, right? You're an extrovert. If you're an extrovert, your dominant function is going to be ring, 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 extroverted, right? And that makes things a little complicated for us introverts, because as an introvert, your dominant function is not going to be extroverted. Your auxiliary is going to be the extroverted function. So like if you're an ENTJ, right? And then your dominant function is extroverted thinking, right? That's like the same sort of thing. And then your auxiliary is introverted intuition, right? And I'm like the opposite of that. Because literally you're dominant. The way you best experience the world, showcase to the world what it is that you have to give and you have to offer is usually your dominant function. And together with your dominant and your auxiliary function, that basically is 90% of your personality. 90% of your personality is your dominant and your auxiliary function. 90%. That's basically who you are. And that's both freeing and very scary. And I'm going to get into that later about habit change and, you know, just how difficult that is, because you're fighting a big battle in changing any sort of habit. Another thing about your dominant function, and I would probably start there in trying to determine your type, is that your dominant function is where you're going to be in a flow state. So as a person with whatever your dominant function, if your dominant function is introverted feeling, if your dominant function is extroverted feeling, if your dominant function is introverted sensing, this is where you live. This is what you do best. There was, I think there was like a article or something that I read about a woman who had like a photographic memory. Also, there's also an actress like this too. Oh my God, guys. I'm going to look this up, who this actress is, so I can tell you about this actress. Okay, I just looked up the actress. This is an actress from an 80s sitcom called Taxi, if you guys know it. It had Laka in it, Andy Kaufman. Big ups to Andy Kaufman. But the actress's name is Lou Henner. And in the show, she played Elaine O'Connor Nardo. I think she was in a relationship with Tony Danza's character, right? Or I could be wrong. And I think in real life, she was in a relationship with Judd Hirsch, which he played Alex. But yeah, so this actress she said that she can recall every single day of her life. Like every day, like she knows the dates, what happened. Like if you're like, hey, Mary, you remember when we got that turkey sandwich at that place on the boulevard and I got sick and, you know, then your agent called you and then you got sick or some random story like that. But it was years ago. It happened in the 90s. She'll be like, April 2nd, 1995. Check this out, because this is what she's saying. That to me speaks heavily, right? Those sort of perceptions, right? Because once again, introverted sensing is a perceiving function, not a judging function. That speaks to me completely of introverted sensing. That woman, to me, if I had to type her, I would probably say she's an ISTJ or ISFJ. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's introverted sensing, man. That's 100% introverted sensing. So some person like that, I would definitely say that's where they're at their flow state. So remembering the past and reliving the past for this actress, that's her flow state. So that's where you want to look for your dominant function. What is the thing you do that is so wonderful and great where everyone's like, holy shit, that's your superpower? What the fuck is your superpower? Look to that, and that will probably align with what your dominant function is. So what is that thing you do the best, right? That you just can't leave it alone. You might have a lot of interests in a lot of things that you're into, but what is the thing you're known for, right? That'd probably be either your dominant or your auxiliary function. So like when I ask my friends are like, Vanita, you get shit done, right? You get shit done, you make things happen. For me, in my mind, we all have different insecurities, right? We're all insecure, and I'm just the first to admit it. But yeah, so I have insecurities. So for me, I'm like, I don't do shit. I'm a fucking bum. But then when I list off what I've actually achieved in my life, especially coming from the background that I've come from, people are like, are you fucking kidding me? But I'm like, no, but I'm a bum though. At least that's how I feel about myself, because I had so much higher expectations for myself at this age. So, but if people say that about you, that's extroverted thinking. Extroverted thinking is the function that I say would get shit done. But for me, myself, the thing that is my greatest passion, that I feel the most flow, is definitely writing. And that's utilizing your introverted intuition 100%. So look back to your childhood. When you were a kid, what was that thing that stuck? That thing that, like, once you found it, it lit up your whole world. It created a complete paradigm shift. For me, that was doing show and tell, and they told me to go home, and I wrote a book, and it was called The Fox Who Fixed Things. I was 5 or 6 years old. And it was a really silly book. It was literally exactly how it sounds, about a fox who fixed things with a hammer. He used to fix his television, he fixed the tub, he fixed the light with a hammer. I don't know how he did it. And the response I got from kids was that of magical. Like, that was the way I was going to connect with the world. I really don't know what's going on with this battery. Yeah, so show and tell, and all the kids loved my story about this fox who fixed things. They were just, you know, so engrossed in it. I was like, this is the way I'm going to communicate with people, because I was like shy and wouldn't talk a lot. That's another thing I'm going to talk about in a second. Just kind of like how your functions develop in terms of like your adult timeline. But as a kid, just know this, as a kid, you're pretty much only your dominant function. That's the thing that really takes hold, and that's really how you're experiencing the world and how people experience you. So I was all introverted intuition for years, probably till I was like 11, 12 years old, where I was just quiet and I didn't, you know, really stick up for myself. And I was just kind of like just living life very passively. Mind you, I was a kid, so, you know, how passive can a kid live? But, you know, I wasn't the kid bouncing off the walls. I wasn't the kid starting trouble. I was just like that girl that would just hang out with people and just kind of be quiet and make fantasies up in my head, right? Oh, the fantasy started then, definitely, the whole other world. So once I realized that I had that sort of passion and that people responded to it, I took it and I ran with it. And it's the one thing from my childhood that I've done that has stayed with me even now, where it's like, even if I'm in my worst place, I will start writing. That's actually what I go to if I'm feeling that sort of way. So that's the first thing I would look to. The second thing is that your other functions start to develop, but when they develop, it's like, I feel like as a kid, you're all your dominant function. As an adolescent and in your 20s, you definitely fully, I think by 20, you fully develop, I was reading this, you fully develop your auxiliary function, which is the extroverted thinking. And that's how you really develop as a person. Because then you have this, especially if you're an introvert, your auxiliary is going to be extroverted. So this is the thing, this is the way you control your environment. You control your environment if you're an introvert, once again, you're controlling your environment with a judging function. So you're controlling your environment with extroverted thinking or extroverted feeling, right? And so for using extroverted thinking, that served me very well. And in many ways, it made me very tactless until I was like 20, 21, 22. And still, until I started to have a lot of experiences that gave me compassion. And what is compassion? Introverted feeling. So that's the tertiary. So your tertiary starts to develop in, you know, your late adolescence, 20s, that sort of thing, which is where I am now. And that's when you start to be like, no, you know, this is when you start to defend people. You get your compassion, you get empathy, and whatever your tertiary is, you know, that's going to develop them. And then it's supposed to be in middle age and in later life, because you spend so much of your early life avoiding your inferior, right? Even though it's driving you. Like, the craziest thing about your inferior function is it is literally driving you in whatever the fuck you're doing, yet you're going to spend most of your life avoiding it. And I want to help people not do that. And I'm still learning myself, of course, too. And I'll get into that a little later. But yeah, so then that's why a person like me, that's why, you know, if I was, this is like a stereotype, right? It's like a stereotype that a person that worked really hard in their life, like a guy, he reaches middle age and then he gets like, you know, 30 hookers and, you know, outrageously expensive cars, and you just go ham. Let these niggas know who you am. You know what I mean? Like, they just go ham, right? I don't know what the female equivalent would that be, but which is why you want to integrate your inferior function early. And for me, I feel like the best way to integrate your inferior function is to integrate it into your life in a way that's not full of pressure. So your job, I would say, even though, you know, once again, your ego is going to lead you down that road to try and make your inferior function your dominant function. And I'm a victim of it too. It's really disturbing. Like, your inferior function is literally your fucking ego, where you're like, I have to pursue that thing, even though everyone around you is like, yeah, I don't see that for you. You're like, fuck you, okay? Like, only your friends see it. Your friends will be like, go do that thing, you know? Or like, you're really smart. You smart, right? And the person like has introverted thinking or something as their inferior function. It's not that they're not smart, but it's like, you know, in terms of being like super organized or being able to, you know, organize the external environment, they may not be able to do that. But like, you know, so that's why I feel like relax with your inferior function. Like, your relaxing activities should be your inferior function. So if your inferior function is extroverted intuition, I wouldn't be moving all over the place, even though you may want to. I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be staying in one place and traveling on vacation, and to kind of satisfy that need that you have in a way that's safe, in a way that, you know, integrates your dominant function where it needs to be, and then also that satisfies your ego and your ego's desire to have this need expressed. So that's one thing. I feel like I could be wrapping up. I don't know. I'm probably going to divide this into some videos just because there's a lot of things I want to cover. Another thing I would do is compare opposite functions. Like compare perceiving functions and then see which one you utilize more. So like, if you have to choose between introverted and extroverted feeling, right? And just thinking about it, right? Are you that person? Do you, like, another thing I would do is even make a chart and then just align like a phrase or like two words or like a person that represents that, you know. Sorry, that's probably going to be a disjointed thought because I had to get the phone, so I don't even know where I am right now. I feel like I was saying relax with your inferior. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so the last couple of things I wanted to talk about, which are just kind of like interesting things. Once again, I would just compare all the types, all the functions. So I would compare, do I utilize extroverted intuition more? Are my ideas divergent? Or are my ideas convergent? Because introverted intuition is convergent. It's using all of your memories, data, patterns, all that stuff to come to one conclusion. Where extroverted intuition is also a perceiving function that's looking outwards to all different types of possibilities, just for the sake of kind of like looking at different possibilities, just for the enjoyment of looking at possibilities. So I would kind of compare each one, the extroverted function versus its introverted brother, and see which ones you utilize the most. That's another sort of idea. Ultimately, you know, taking the test. But I think those things are good to kind of look at because you can kind of see what different things mean to you. Another video idea that I have is kind of looking at how the functions work in terms of where they are in your functional stack. So if that's something you'd like to see, let me know. Like, if extroverted sensing is your auxiliary, how is that different than if it's your tertiary, right? So that's another video idea I might do. The last thing I want to talk about is stereotypes. So I want to go back to stereotypes. So in terms of reality, I've heard from a lot of people that says introverted men are naturally slimmer than extroverted men, or that they tend to be ectomorphs. Like, I don't know that this is true. I've heard some studies about it. I know as an introverted female, that definitely doesn't account for us at all. Because I'm over here like, hey, you know, I'm definitely like have a lot more going on. I have broad shoulders and I'm a thick person. So that's kind of like, don't look to those sort of things in trying to find a person's type. Another thing that's very interesting is that in terms of where a function is on your stack, and once again, this is just kind of like just an idea and a theory. Well, this is all theory, but you know, that, like, for instance, if extroverted sensing is in your top two functions, then you're probably a morning person. I've heard this. I don't know if it's true. As opposed to me, where if extroverted sensing is in my, you know, bottom two functions, I am not a morning person, and I'm not the person that gets up and wants to start jogging and working out and stuff. Like, it takes me a while to kind of get up inside. And when I do, I want to get up and I want to write and do sort of slow things. Like, I like to start my day slowly, which would be utilizing like introverted intuition and stuff like that, right? And then towards the afternoon, and definitely kind of at night, I get this sort of burst of energy, and I can see myself doing more working out and just like late night yoga and that sort of thing. So that's a theory. It's something to look at. What else? Yeah, so just remember that in terms of your type, it is a stereotype. I'm just trying to wrap this up now, and it's kind of determined by a lot of different things. Like, let's say you're an INTP in New York in 2016 versus an INTP in a developing country, for example. You have different access to certain things and like internet and stuff. It's gonna look different. That's the thing. It's gonna have the same principle, but once again, we're having both an individual and subjective. We're having a subjective and sort of like objective experience, both happening at the same time. It sounds like a paradox, but it's not. Or maybe it is a paradox, but that's kind of like, that's what it is. It both exists at the same time. I am an individual, and I'm also part of a collective. So that's something to look at. And, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that's in terms of looking at your parents, which is very interesting. So when I look at siblings, rarely do I see siblings that have the same type. Even twins, they tend to kind of develop different preferences, right? What's very interesting is I'm separated from my father, but he was an introvert and he was a sensor, right? And my mother is an extrovert and she's an intuitive. And and he was also a perceiver. Like, if I had to type my father, I would say he's an ISTP. Oh, you know what? That's perfect. I think my father was an ISTP. This is actually like an in the moment sort of realization. I just realized I classify my father as ISTP. But I've been separated from him for a long time, but he was an ISTP. My mother was an ENFJ, or she is an ENFJ. She's still here. And as a result, I spent obviously much more time with my mother, and I'm an INTJ. There is some thought in some theory that a lot of this is, genes, a lot of this is your biology, and it's kind of set from day one that you will be this. And I kind of like that idea. So in terms of that, I feel like it's kind of interesting to look at, and interesting to look at how that influenced you, and what your parents are in relation to you, right? It's very likely that you're not the complete opposite of your parents, right? It's very likely that you share at minimum 2 functions with them. It'd be interesting to have an ESFP child and an INTJ mom. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I feel like, or just like my idea about it, is that you'll have at least 2 functions. You'll share at least 2 functions with your parents. So that's it for now. That's my sort of spiel on finding your true type. If this has been helpful for you, let me know. If you have some sort of video suggestion, let me know. And nice talking to everybody. I'll see you guys later. Bye.